andTales. So welcome to the show. This is Tapes and Tales, and my name is Dan Jagger.
Tapes and Tales. Tapes and Tales.
So we've got 3 more stories for you in this episode. The title of the show today is Sliced by the Blade. 3 stories featuring knife attacks, stabbings, slicing the skin, swashbuckling, sword fighting. So as you can imagine, you may want to use some discretion when listening to this. There's some adult content and some strong language. Stories from Bridge Williams, Mercedes Dawson, and first of all, Gareth Heaton.
By nightfall the road was all but deserted. Her chest was rising and falling rapidly as she gasped for breath. Quickly she regained her composure and picked up her pace. The ground underfoot was unforgiving. It would have been quicker to travel on the road, but it was too exposed. The risk of being spotted was too great there, so she continued to move hastily over crisp pine needles and fallen branches. She sensed there was someone close behind but couldn't be sure. Then she was sure. From the periphery of her left eye she saw the faint reflection of moonlight. Uncertain as to what made the reflection, she darted to the right. Aware now that she was being followed, she drew her sword and carried on moving, rapidly shifting her weight from side to side, narrowly managing to avoid a pool of water on the ground before heading to the right and vaulting a fallen pine tree. Beyond the tree was something of a clearing. Almost glowing in the moonlight, it seemed to her to be the perfect place. As she backed into the shadow at the rear of the clearing, she watched carefully. Her pursuer walked purposefully along the tree's length, stepping around the remains of its broken limbs with ease. Silently he floated to the ground and drew his sword. By this time she studied every inch of his body, deducing every scrap of information she needed within the 30 seconds it took for him to strut along the tree. Feeling the ground carefully with her left foot, she inched slowly into the moonlight. With her sword by her side, she edged closer until they were less than 20 feet apart. Face to face now, they waited. And waited. She watched him closely. Through her periphery she observed a tiny droplet of dew form high on an overhanging branch. It fell effortlessly through the air, blowing from left to right as gravity pulled it toward his shoulder. She struck, padding effortlessly across a bed of pine needles and bringing her sword down hard, the cold blade narrowly missing its target as her opponent parried the blow and leapt to his left. Immediately he retaliated, sweeping his torso-cutting blade under her body as she leapt onto the tree. Again he swung, raising a spray of dew from the trunk's mossy surface. Her feet barely made contact with the ground before they sprung her back toward him. Whilst cutting through the air, she reached to her waist and drew a short sword, attacking with both blades as she flew past him. With a lightning strike he swiped, a perfectly timed attack that served to not only injure but to disorientate its target. He could clearly see that he'd drawn blood and his opponent was dazed. Capitalising on his advantage, he attacked again, swiping hard and narrowly missing. He swiped again, certain he would make contact, but the blade met no resistance. He span his body while swiping 180 degrees, still nothing. His head darted from left to right, slashing furiously as he searched the clearing. And suddenly he became aware of 6, 7, 8 figures surrounding him, shifting from point to point in the blink of an eye. Their pace seemed to quicken until their forms were almost undistinguishable. Disorientating him further was the noise, pulsing and reverberating around the half-lit forest until it drew waves of nausea up from his stomach. His teeth began to throb and his eyes to bulge and redden, finally causing him to lose any awareness of his surroundings. Then, as if hit by a shockwave, he was flung back, her nails bearing notches from 1,000 lives embedded deep into his face. Instantly he tasted his own blood. It tasted different from before, richer, warmer, and he remembered hearing this about the blood from a death stroke. He felt the nail from her thumb scrape across the surface of her left eye, scratching a small trench into his cornea and leaving him with blurred stripe across his vision for a moment before it filled with blood. Although he knew it was futile, he tried to throw off his assailant. Sketches of his freedom danced in front of his eyes momentarily and encouraged him again to fight. When he brought his hands to hers in the hope of freeing himself and easing the searing pain, he felt his pulse weaken and discovered what he already knew. Staggering back once more, his legs giving up before she relaxed her grip and stepped back. There was an arc of blood on the ground and a small pool forming under the gash on his throat. She watched as his body twitched while she inspected her fingers and teased his flesh from underneath her nails with her teeth.
Tapes
That was The Road to Edo by Gareth Heaton. So I just want to quickly mention our Twitter account. We're at Tapes and Tales, and if you follow us, you can find out information about the show and find out when the next episodes are out. And also, if you're a writer and you fancy getting involved, recording as a story, then please get in touch that way. That's at Tapes and Tales. So next story is called Untoward. It's by Mercedes Dawson.
Tapes and tales.
There were stories, fat-worded ones, about the origin, the flavour, the taste of it. In this city there is no room for it. Men be workers, men be business, women be jerkers, twerkers, the office knee-jerkers, not biblical characters without their own dialogue. The streets were grey movement, tapped feet on their way to tall cement buildings to have tapped keys for day in, day out, day in, day out. And the skies were grey clouds, skinny rain, not apocalyptic colours and context. Skirts, suits, overalls. Overall, there'd been no place in the city for the whores where she was kept. There were rumours some chick got into a fight in the northern quarter, pulled some bone out of her clutch bag, looked like a rib, and jacked a smile into a face that really did not want to smile. He's still smiling now, jagged red and pissed. Shudders every time he walks past Cane and Grain. The police came, wailing sirens that make you thank God you aren't a mother. Hurled her into a van, busted, bruised, born under a bad sign, guys. She spat and growled, kicked some copper in the dick and lived to laugh about it. He didn't even paste her or anything. Good job she wasn't arrested in Hume like that other girl. A split tongue apparently forking out, fuck you to the judge later. Rumours started. Some devil in a dustbin dress that lived down Oxford Road. Some street rat, scatty slip of a girl with stones bigger than most Moss Side bitches. Graffiti started to flag itself on walls. Tags about some sort of arrival. Bigger than Jesus. Bigger than that puff with the big ass boat that had far too many animals on it. Bigger than Bieber. Manchester skies aren't known for being forgiving ones, and April showers continued for about a year. We ran graffiti out of town, pushed the buskers into bars, cleansed the streets of profits like the water was searching our house or something. I remember because, yet again, the Metrolink had a hissy fit about leaves on the tracks, blah blah, we apologise for any inconvenience, etc, etc. I saw her at Cornbutt once. She was digging in a bin for butts to light up, and mumbling to herself over and over that she gave it him back. She kept scratching manically at her rib cage. 15-minute delay for the Ultraman line. Typical. She sat next to me and stretched the arms of the exhausted. I saw a glimpse of this scar on her side, full on jagged, jinxed and ready to split. She saw me looking too, shushed me with a look and then ran off down the tracks. I had a friend who worked at Strange Ways for a while, and this new trick had come in. Climbed the walls and raged all kinds of hell. All the older women in the ward started following her around like lambs or something. The guards left them to it. But the white walls turned a peel or two when they all sat there one day, and with a load of glass shards in their hands from God only knows where, and cut out one of their own ribs. Everyone full on freaked. She just sat there and smiled, scratching away at her side. There's a big deal about it for a while. The emo kids that hung out near the Triangle Starbucks started to start a movement. Didn't get very far. T-shirts were printed at Affleck's. Suddenly tattoos on rib cages became a thing. She and about 15 other women offed themselves shouting about empowerment and the rights to free will at some point. Kind of sad looking back through the archives in the library. The only thing you can find about it is an interview done by some media student from Man Met. Last known interview transcript of Eve, Doe. Dolls, be dolls. You're at a tea party. You're my dolls and it's hush time. Paper and card dolls that cover their sticky innards from outward eyes. My lips to their lips, shush. They'll know my words and hear my meaning. Silent, sinners, silent. There is a man out there and he doesn't want to have cake with his flies. We make good caterpillars, chrysalised in my carded cove, and when the man passes, we'll be butterflies again. I watch you leave, but can you see? You want to stay. This be Finn. But there is no debate here and you cannot help me. There's no room at the inn. I have held them like a bad kitten, all scruff of neck and meowing like I am catnip. Left them for another Tom to play with. But don't worry, I play with this Tom and earn me a tip. He'll be Suede and I'll be Mink, distracting from the truth, I think. My paper dolls are corn house, turn them and they be safe. Safe like houses, like street lamps and merry-go-rounds. I search him out, I am his girl Friday again. A moment and a moment only, I'll be his girl Friday again. If I am back in his arms, he won't chase the chase for a while, but I'll scratch him with the needle and he will feel no pain. No, Mummy, don't look. I be a filthy girl and have no other dresses for church. Close your eyes, Mummy, I be a fast girl. Just like Daddy and they'll be gone soon. I will be a little wily thing again and I promise a new starch dress. He always tastes like copper. No pomegranates in my mouth. Just copper and sand, like when I had buckets and seashells under my hand. He likes it when I lie but not lie. Lie like not truth, or sly truth, but lie like sticks in the river, like a still thing. He is quick and slow, slow mind slowed by the needle kiss. Dirty whore. She slaps them up but makes them sing. There's a dark, wet place of me now. My paper dolls have hidden shamed faces, and you poke at them with dirty fingernails. Soft brain, hard intent.
Tapes and Tales.
Tapes and Tales. A papule in the popliteal space. Command N, no notifications or messages. Updated cover photo of 2 dogs whaling ships in Japan. You know it's early when you use hairspray instead of deodorant. 3 photos of Istanbul. Photo of an engagement ring. 30th birthday. The books you read make you sexy. I lie in bed, lamplight. I look at the ceiling. I scratch the back of my leg. Command Shift N, WHIPPEDASS.COM. Over 18's warning, click to enter, latest shoots. Dungeon games, board, fem, dom, spank, whip and fuck to kill time. Click to view preview, 5 previews remaining. I kick the covers back and remove my pants. The preview is 1 minute and 30 seconds. Writhing marionettes, holes, moans, fluids, cum in the tissue, info board, shoot number, studio identification. Command N, no notifications or messages. Tom posted a video, gig advert, baby photo, Texas band, fracking band. My wilted penis rests on the tissue to collect the last drops of cum forced out by it shrinking. I never come onto the sheets. It's disgusting. Luke is eating Doritos. Sarah is looking for 80s fancy dress ideas for her sister's birthday. Command Q. I wake up scratching the back of my leg. There is a small lump right in the crook of my knee. I mean the back of my knee. Or the back of my leg. What is that called?
Command N. Crook of the knee, forum.word reference. Bobby, new member, November 2009. I've heard of the term crook in the arm. Is there a similar noun for the space behind the knee? Parla, senior member, November 2009. The back of the knee. There appears to be a medical term, popliteal space. Grubble, senior member, November 2009. A girlfriend of mine many years ago coined the phrase knee pit. It certainly has no validity, but deserves a bit of usage in light-hearted situations! Exclamation mark. Bobby, new member, December 2010. Now that's creative use of the language. I like it! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I push the covers off, releasing the stale air of a night's sleep, and twist to see my popliteal space. I contort myself into the chalk outline of some body fallen from a great height. I pull my leg back with my hand and strain my waist and neck around, but I can't get close enough to make out the detail of the small mark that I see. I investigate with my fingers, and the information I receive in the absence of sight is exaggerated, like an ulcer in the mouth that your tongue tells you is a £2 coin with deep undulations and huge cresting folds of skin circling a dark, iron-tasting hole into your cheek. And then, when you turn your cheek inside out in front of a mirror, there is only a tiny white mark, an area of dead skin no bigger than the head of a match. I try a new angle, kneeling on the bed and extending my leg out behind me whilst looking over my shoulder. I use the torch from my phone and it lights my flesh yellow. The hairs are sparse but individually thick and slightly greasy from the fold of my leg. The spot is a dark red, but there is no white head in the middle. In fact, it looks more like a black dot. Command N, INSECT space BITE return. NHS choices, insect bites and stings. An insect bite or sting often causes a lump to develop, which is usually very itchy. A small hole or the sting itself may also be visible. If you're particularly sensitive to insect bites, you may develop bullae, fluid-filled blisters, papules, small red lumps, wheals, circular fluid-filled areas surrounding the bite, bullae, papule, or wheal. A papule in my popliteal space. I adopt the kneeling position again and reach around with both hands so as to grip my knee and position my thumbs on either side of the papule. I push the nails in, focusing the pressure right at the base of it. I push so the very tips of the nails sink into the skin and bleach the area white as the blood is forced away. Nothing breaks the surface though, and as I release the pressure, the blood floods back in, leaving only two small crescent-shaped indentations. The tip remains black, and the surrounding area seems darker now, angrier. I lay back down. It has swollen throughout the day. I can now feel a sack of fluid squashed flat just beneath the skin. It's tender and hot, and I cannot find a comfortable position to lie in for fear of it being irritated by my sheets. And I can neither stretch nor bend for the added pressure that is applied to the papule, the bulla, the sack of fluid. Sam posted a video, Cold War documentary. James, life is just odd. Trending news, anti-gay American pastor outed by Grindr messages. Richard via FT.com, article, temporary workers account for 75% of the workforce. Robin got married to Jessica. Tax return, done. Gig advert. I awake in intense pain. I reach beneath the covers and recoil from the solid, raised tennis ball protruding from the popliteal space. I reach over, turn the bedside lamp on and lift the covers back. There is no definition to the area. The skin is pulled taut like a big top tent, hiding the tendons and muscles beneath and giving a vulgar continuity of thickness between calf and thigh. There is intense pressure on my knee, and as I pull myself from my bed, the blood rushing down into my legs burns as a flesh hypercaust, dark, hot. I wince, falter, and hang on to the bedroom door. I must relieve the pressure. I sit myself down each step, making sure not to knock the swollen papule as I go. I hop into the kitchen and out into the garage. In my toolbox I find a Stanley knife. The blade is blunt with spots of rust, and I install a new one. I kneel on the cold kitchen floor in my underpants, the bright lights hurting my eyes so recently woken from sleep. My leg is again stretched out behind me and I strain to get round to see it. I hold the blade in my left hand and the leg with my right. In the light, I can just about see the throb of blood in time with my heartbeat. In my mind, I can see the blood beating in and out of a cavernous system of tissue, like the chambers of a soft, porous rock. It is swollen to a smooth, pregnant sphere. I place the blade against the very top center and gently push into its mass. The tip of the blade pushes against the surface, indenting it like a finger to a balloon. The skin hesitates, at the edge of its tensity, before abruptly inflating back to its engorged curvature, gripping the very tip of the knife in a swollen mouth out of which a drop of blood now swells. I stifle a cry of pain, my eyes screw tight. There is no gushing of liquid or popping sound. There is a solidity to it. I push further. The blade slices and the skin tears under its own tautness. I shake and sweat and blood runs down my leg, forming bulbous drops on my kneecap before dropping onto the floor. I count to 3 between deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. I force the knife in and it slices down the circumference of the papule, stopping at the tendon. Released of its tension, the skin splits right down the other side and my leg turns out a fistful of dark yellow liquid. Marriage, marred, maudlin, tax return in hypercoarse flesh, sepulchral papule. The holes and moans of the fracking bands wailing, femdoms and engagement rings wilting into tissue touching, tensity, tautness and baby of boule, with bursting boil of the pasta, the fist on the first pulpit, kneecap, splitting, spitting, sundry sun-dried and baked blood in swirling swirls of fancy-dressed puckered mouths, picked and plucked hair of lamp-light, trees, stumps, sticks, stolen flesh, flash, drops on tiles, tails, tiles, tiles, tiles. My cheek is cold and wet. My eyes open to the floor on its side. A great plane stretching away from me, the lines of the tiles making a gross exaggeration of vanishing perspective. My eyes pull focus and I see a cat bowl a short distance away. I see the cooker standing over me and I see that there is dirt underneath it. Each of my senses come into focus in turn and my body reveals itself as if a heavy blanket is being slowly withdrawn. First my head, then my neck, my torso, the arms, the hands, then finally the waist, the thighs, the groin, the legs. I am lying half twisted at the waist, my face and chest against the floor, my legs on their side, cocked, and laying one on the other. I look down on myself from an imagined point and see a flattened marionette, carelessly dropped, left in its unnatural pose and measured out and proportioned by the gridwork tiles on which it lays. There is a strange smell, an organic smell, a bacterial smell that of itself isn't repulsive, but provokes in me an instinctual familiarity to knowing that it is. As the feeling comes into my face, I mistake the manifestation of the smell in my mouth as the simple link between the senses within the head. But as that heavy blanket of unconsciousness is lifted, I realise that the subtle but pointed taste of decomposition is accompanied by a texture, a gum, a goo. I draw hands to shoulders and very slowly lift my head. As the floor comes into focus, I see it is reaching up to my mouth with strings of some viscous liquid that elongate, stretch, and then snap, half the length of which falls to the puddle on the floor from which they emanate, and the other half hanging as some foul saliva from my lips. I follow the tear shape of the dark yellow puddle to its source. It runs beneath my body, up over the thigh of one leg. It ends at the popliteal point of my knee, which, like my lips, oozes the same sticky substance with the same mix of pus and ribbons of blood swirling through it. My stomach instinctively convulses and I gag, the pus blood webbing at the corner of my mouth. My mind flashes words in 10-foot-tall letters of rotten, puckering meat, boule, wheel, papule, that seem to tower over me in some hellish landscape. I gag again, my head hanging limp between my shoulder blades, and this time I release a hot, choking vomit from my throat. It mixes on the floor with the rest of the bodily substance into a cocktail of the insides, a revelation of the bubbling and the frothing that lives just beneath the skin. Commander N. Jamie is attending Claire's rooftop party. Alex is camping with Mark. Charlie posted a photo. Phoenix, Arizona, multiple shootings. Tom updated his cover photo. Andrew, any tips for places to visit in Hong Kong? North Korea submarine footage. Robin and Jessica on honeymoon. Catherine, due date December, Christmas baby. Stephanie posted an article, Quiet Zone, where mobile phones are banned. Becky shared Samantha's video. Command W. I lay in bed and stare at the ceiling, my eyes adjusting from the blue light of the screen to the dull yellow of my bedside lamp. It is late, and there is silence. My leg is bandaged and raised on 2 pillows. I'm confined to my bed. I have a salt bath and change the bandage every day. It is a deep hole in my leg, a sunken volcano bubbling its last, but healing slowly. I'm hoping to be walking on it tomorrow. I reach for my phone and kick the covers off with my good leg. I angle the camera so you can't see any of the yellow stain immediately over the wound, just the top of the knee, with a white bandage propped up in a perfect pastiche of the wounded patient at rest. I pick up my laptop.
Tapes and tales.
So that was a story from Bridge Williams. It's called A Papule in the Popliteal Space. And before that we had a story from Mercedes Dawson, and that was called Untoward. And at the start of the show we had Gareth Heaton and his story The Road to Edo. So 3 great stories in this episode, all loosely connected to knife attacks or slicing or stabbing, swashbuckling. We've had a bit of it all. So just quickly the Twitter again. It's @Tapes and Tales if you want to get in touch with us, find out when the next episode is out. And that's it for this time. We'll see you again. Bye.